Welcome to the Beyond You podcast, where we have real conversations about healing, trusting yourself again, and building the kind of relationships that actually feel good. I'm Samantha, and if you've ever felt like you're just going through the motions, like you're doing all the right things but still feeling disconnected, you're in the right place. Because here we go beyond the surface, beyond the hurt, beyond the patterns that keep you stuck. So take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Welcome back. I'm your host, Samantha. I'm a therapist, mom, a woman healing out loud, and constantly learning what it means to come home to myself. And I thought that would make this episode a little bit more personal, so you could just hear my journey and see if you can be able to follow through on what works for you and yours. And so I want to talk about what it looks like to rebuild your life, not based on what other people expect of you, but based on what finally feels like you. So not the version you performed for, not the one you molded to survive, but the version you wake up with now, soft, steady, and free. Because lately, that's what I've been living. And I had no idea peace could feel like this. And I want to have this conversation because I think a lot of times we probably put this persona that we have it all together, and I want to let you know that it takes work to put this together. The reason why I do this work is because I've lived it. And that's why I can resonate when someone is having a difficult with changing or finding self people pleasing, And so I want to have this conversation today because I know so many of you are in that messy, beautiful middle of figuring out who you really are beneath all the roles and expectations that you've been carrying. And sometimes that journey can feel so lonely. Like you're the only one questioning everything you thought was supposed to make you happy. But I wanted you to know that you're not alone, not even a little bit. So let's walk this path together today with gentleness and truth. Take a deep breath with me and let's dive in. You ever look back at your life and think that looked good on paper? That was me. Just looked good on paper, but there was a lot of times where it just was miserable. And understand that, yes, that was me. I had the life that society felt like you should have. Married, check. Kids, check. Business, thriving. But internally, I felt like I was managing an image that I never fully consented to. Right? And that's what I really talked about in the Permission Slip episode and Authenticity 1. Because I was out here collecting achievements and checking boxes like they were somehow going to add up to fulfillment, building a life that photographed well but didn't feel good to live in. And there was a time I didn't know what I wanted. I knew what was expected, what looked right, what kept the peace, what made people say, look at her doing it all. But peace built on performance that never lasts. And for those of us who grew up as the responsible ones, the ones who held it together when everything was falling apart, the ones who learned early that our value was tied to how useful we could be to others, this hits differently. We become masters at just anticipating other people's needs, at shape-shifting to fit whatever space we're in, code switching, not just our language, but just our entire selves to match what each environment demands from us. And I remember sitting in my just beautiful apartment one evening after my boys were finally asleep, everything perfectly in place, my calendar full of the right commitments, and feeling completely just empty. Like I was a guest in my own life. And I remember not really understanding on why that was the case, because society felt like I should be okay. But understand that emptiness wasn't because I was ungrateful. It wasn't because I didn't appreciate the blessings in my life. It was because beneath all those blessings was a foundation on should instead of want, on just external validation instead of internal alignment. And I just allowed myself to just perform what people thought I should be, right? The girl who grew up in church and, was considered the good girl, right? And so for those that are navigating multiple cultural expectations, those of us balancing the values we were raised with alongside our just own desires, this journey has added layers of complexity, right? Like the fear of being seen as selfish, or just because of just culture in general, just whether Western, the concern about disconnecting from community or tradition. Like I see you in that complexity as well. But here is just some things I've learned through this process, that honoring your own authentic self isn't rejecting your roots. It's actually watering those roots with truth so they can grow into something strong and beautiful that truly expresses all of who you are. And the first step in creating a life that feels like yours is simply acknowledging when it doesn't. And I know that I knew it just wasn't, because I just didn't feel at peace within it. I felt like there was just more that was just for me. And when we acknowledge that it doesn't, it's not to beat yourself up. That's not what this is about, but to create space for something new to emerge. And so I know when I talked about in January 2025, when I first was kind of really tapping into just a podcast, I talked about, for this year, I chose the word adventure. And I wasn't talking about hiking up mountains or jumping out of planes. I talked about like quite a bit of this in my Substack, where I kind of get a little more personal with you guys. So for me, adventure looked like going to new places alone, like trying recipes I would have never made for myself before. I think I've allowed myself to acknowledge the people that I care about and just really align with my values. And so when it comes to just going to places alone, like all these matters to me because it's things I didn't get to do when I was younger. Like I know some people went to vacations and stuff. My version of vacation growing up was just visiting family in the deep parts of Virginia, or just going to see family, whether in DC and Maryland. We never really went anywhere. So the fact that I'm allowing myself to go outside my comfort zone and go on adventures and trying different things, and even, taking my mother along with me, is new for me. And it allows me to really step into just being me, right? And I've always been someone that is very just, let's try it, let's do it in anything that I do. And so it just kind of comes to me, and I'll just kind of try to see if I like it or if I don't like it. And that's why I kind of teach you guys those things too. And, when it comes to trying recipes I would have never made for myself before, it's something that reminds me of my father. I don't know if you guys know, my father passed away about 5 or 6 years ago, like right before COVID hit in 2019. And so when trying the recipes, I remember it's something he would watch cooking shows and try different recipes and see what tastes good, what didn't taste good. And so that just reminds me of him. So I'm doing things that are just adventurous, out of my comfort zone, because I wasn't really cooking before at all. I would things to kind of get by, but not like allowing myself to really step in to see what you can create and do different things. And I also allowed myself to just rearrange my boys' room because they're growing, and just so am I. My oldest at this moment is about to go into middle school, and just, it's about to turn 11. So just kind of allowing room to just grow into just having teenagers soon, and so also with booking a quick getaway without overthinking it, because I really trust myself now when it comes to whether relationships, even through all the mistakes that I've made. I think allowing yourself to trust yourself. And I think it's so important to be able to do and to show up for yourself completely and fully. So even if it's just last minute, which old me would have never done. Like, if it wasn't in a plan, then I wasn't doing it. But I think adventure is me getting curious about who I am becoming, not just surviving or who I was told to be. And authenticity is one of the values I really crave. And that's why I talk about it and became just authentic relationship expert, because I want to make sure it just aligns with me and whatever I'm doing. And there's something powerful about giving yourself permission to explore without knowing exactly where you'll end up. And I'm not sure what your word is, but if you want to jump along in this journey with being adventurous and trying new things, I'm so down. And I want to hear exactly what your version of adventure is for you, because I like on how each word is just pertaining to what you think it means for you, not dictionary version, but what it is for you. And so I want to be able to, for me to make choices based on curiosity rather than certainty. I know growing up, before we had Google Maps and all those things, we had like MapQuest, and I used to be so scared of the fear, like just the unknown, the feeling of uncertainty. We just weren't friends. It wasn't happening. I did not like feeling lost. It just really bothered me. And I know a lot of times it bothers a lot of people, but I think now when looking at uncertainty as just a blank canvas that you get to be able to create and explore, it makes it sound adventurous, but there's a lot of moments you gotta go outside your comfort zone to be comfortable in being in the uncertainty. So for someone like me who spent years trying to control every little variable, who needed to know exactly how things would turn out before taking a step, this internal adventure has been both terrifying and liberating at the same time. And I remember the first time I went to a restaurant by myself, just me, my thoughts, and a good meal. No one to take care of, no conversation to manage, just presence with myself. And I've been just really going on adventures journey, whether in all aspects of my life, relationship wise, just friendships. I will say exactly what I mean when what I say. I will, here I'm going to go here. If no one wants to go, I'm jumping in and going. I saw the Black violinist not too long ago when I just even started the dating process again. I allowed me authentic of what's going on and was just being just led with just me being me. And I just noticed on how it made such a shift in who I attract when you allow yourself to be fully you. So I'm just excited about this journey that's going on, because you guys have been with me in this journey, whether through the breakup and then getting into just kind of new relationship spaces too, and friendships, all those things. So I remember we just got to overall understand that even when you kind of go back to just having just whether meals by yourself or anything, I know that at first I just felt really awkward when going out and doing these adventures. Like everyone was wondering why I was alone, but a lot of times they're not people are not really thinking about us like that. And by the end of that meal, when I just been trying it out or anything that I'm doing, a lot of times I feel this expansiveness in my chest, a sense of I can enjoy my own company. And that might sound so simple to some of you, but for those of us who've defined ourselves by what we do for others, claiming space just for ourselves can feel revolutionary. So adventure isn't always about what you do, but sometimes about how you do it, with curiosity instead of control, with wonder instead of worry. And I remember a coach years ago told me that I need to just allow myself to plan a vacation without having a whole itinerary set up, like make my own itinerary. Like a lot of times I would just go to different, travel groups, which is not bad or wrong, but I think because my version of control and what that looked like, allowing myself to have moments where I don't have control, even having a day where I go out and I don't control everything that's happening within that day, was something I did not do. And so I think allowing ourselves to just be able to explore and seeing what feels good, right? If you go somewhere in DC and what do I feel like eating now? Okay, let me go to it. Oh, let me try this. Like allowing yourself to trust the uncertainty just of the day and seeing what happens. Life-changing just for me, and just allowing myself to really tap into the fear of unknown and uncertainty. And so understand that I want you to see just what I'm learning. When you approach your life with this sense of internal adventure, everyday moments become sacred. The mundane becomes just kind of magical, not because your circumstances have changed dramatically, but because you're fully present in them rather than just going through the motions. And so I want you to think about, what would adventure look like for you if it wasn't about impressing anyone? If it was just about getting curious about what lights you up from the inside? If it was about exploring the parts of yourself you've kept hidden or haven't had space to discover yet. So this is your invitation to find out, not because you need to radically change your external life, but because the internal journeys where all just a real magic happens, and allowed me just kind of peace, because it was all from my choices. And so let's talk about kind of like building that sanctuary. Let's talk about home, right? Not just the house you live in, the space you create. Right now, I'm in the season of building just like an overall sanctuary. You know what I'm saying? So when I say sanctuary, I'm talking about my home, my schedule, my energy, my parenting. All of it is shifting to support peace. And that doesn't mean it's perfect. Absolutely not. It's not. I'm still showing up for 2 growing boys, still running a business, still healing, but it means I'm just really intentional about how I show up within my life. So for so long, I treated my home like a backdrop for other people's comfort, right? I chose colors, furniture, even the meals I cooked based on what would please others rather than what nourished me. But now, I'm reclaiming my space as an extension of my inner world, right? A place that reflects who I am, not who I think I should be. intentional about having yes days with my boys, where each of us gets to choose something joyful just for us. I took it from just that movie, but I think just each person having one thing that's just a yes for them. I think you get to really know each person within your household, and they get to know you and why it's important for you. So it doesn't feel like it's just about the kids want, or just about just what, mom or dad or whoever wants. It's about like allowing yourselves to see, okay, this is important to you. Let's do this. It's important to you. Let's do that. And not activities that photograph well for social media. Like I hardly think about taking pictures of this, but I just want to, for me, it's important for them to have the experiences. I think just kind of how I grew up. I think the most pertaining, especially when it comes to just losing my father, was just experiences I have, the connections and memories, that means a lot to me. That makes me so grateful to even have the time of the 32 years I had with him at the time. So cooking just for the fun of it, not because I have to. Sometimes that's a complex recipe that challenges me. And sometimes it's breakfast for dinner because that's what sounds good and just would taste good at that moment. So I'm going to be able, curating my space to feel like mine, surrounding myself with colors, textures, and objects that spark joy. Or curating my space to feel like mine, surrounding myself with colors, textures, and objects that spark joy or hold meaning, not just what fits the current trend. Tapping into creativity and spirituality without guilt. Making time for the practices that feed just who I am, and even when they don't seem productive or conventional standards, So for those of us who've been conditioned to believe that taking care of ourselves is selfish, that putting our needs on the list is somehow taking from others, understand that this process of creating sanctuary requires unlearning some deep programming. But also what I just kind of discovered and learned is when I tend to my own sanctuary, both my physical space and my internal just landscape of just how I work through things, I have so much more to offer those I love. Not from a place of depletion or obligation, but from a place of genuine just abundance. And I've been really just kind of allowing my individuals I work with to really explore just the feeling of abundance when you just know that things are just going to be okay. And that internal belief, right? And when we have that, we don't allow ourselves to just overthink because we just trust the process. And I think we need to do a lot more of that. So my boys are witnessing what it looks like to honor your own needs alongside others. Understand when I'm doing this, they're also learning that love doesn't require just selfishness or what a gift just to be able to give them that I didn't really I just didn't have growing up. And all of this piece by piece has helped me feel like I belong in my own life again, like I have a right to take up space. All of this piece by piece has helped me feel like I belong to my own life again, like I have a right to take up space, to have preferences, to exist fully rather than just in service to others. What would it look like for you to create more sanctuary in your life? Where do you need more peace, more authenticity, more alignment? Start just with one small corner. It doesn't have to be everything all at once. And so now I want to get real for a second, because there were relationships that couldn't come with me. Honestly, friendships I had to distance myself from, conversations I stopped chasing, people I had to stop trying to prove my healing to. Because when you stop performing, you realize how many people only loved your performance, And this part of the journey is it's the hardest. It's because just as people, we're wired for connection, and the fear of losing relationships can keep us small for years, decades even. I remember the first time I set a boundary with someone who was used to having unlimited access to my energy. Their response made it clear they didn't love me, they loved what I did for them. They didn't see me, they saw the role I played in their life. And that realization hurt. It did. It still does sometimes, but it also freed me to invest more deeply in relationships built on mutual seeing, mutual growth, and mutual respect, But letting go doesn't mean bitterness. It means gratitude for what was, peace with what is, and openness for what's to come, And so Every relationship has served a purpose in just your journey, if you think about it. Even the ones that didn't last. Some people are meant to walk with you for a season, and some for a reason, some for a lifetime. I know that's like a cliche saying, but it's true. I think it gives a perspective that there are going to be people who are going to be in your life, and there's some that it's just for that moment, and that's okay. The relationships that have evolved as I've changed has taught me that true connection isn't about fixing yourself to fit someone else's expectations. It's about finding the people who celebrate your growth rather than resist it. And when you build a life that feels like yours, you stop begging for acceptance in spaces that only ever wanted pieces of you. You stop trying to prove your worth to people. You stop trying to prove your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable with your light. You stop explaining your boundaries to people who benefited from you not having any. Instead, you pour that energy into cultivating connections that feel like sunshine, and into spaces where your full self is welcomed, into relationships where your growth is celebrated, not threatened. If you're in that messy middle right now, navigating changing relationships, setting boundaries that feel uncomfortable, grieving connections that couldn't evolve with you, I want you to know that you're not doing anything wrong. This is part of the process. This is what growth looks like, and it's worth it. The peace on the other side is worth every uncomfortable conversation, every moment of guilt, every misunderstanding, because when you're living from a place of authenticity rather than obligation, everything gets to be more real, more true, and more alive. So if you're in a season like mine, rediscovering, reclaiming, and realigning, I just want to see if you want to answer some of these gentle questions to carry with you as you go through this process. What version of me am I ready to thank and release? Maybe it's the version that always puts others first. Maybe it's the version that derives worth from productivity. Maybe it's the version that stays small to make others comfortable. Whatever it is, can you thank that version for how she protected you? And then gently let her know that you're ready for something new. Where do I feel most me, and how can I create more of that? That's the next question I want you to ask yourself. Because is it certain people who reflect your authentic self back to you? Is it specific places where you feel most alive? Or is it particular activities where you lose track of time? I want you to really think about how can you intentionally incorporate more of these elements into your life as you write these things down. What does success feel like in my body, not just my mind? Not what success looks like on paper or on social media. Not what success means according to family or culture or society, but what does success actually feel like in your body? What sensations arise when you're truly aligned with your own definition of thriving? What is mine to carry, and what am I allowed to put down now? Really take the time to be able to ask yourself these things, because I want you to think about, when thinking about this, which responsibilities truly belong to you, which expectations have you inherited that no longer serve, and what burdens have you been carrying that were never yours to begin with. These questions aren't about fixing yourself. They're not about finding the right answers. They're invitations to get curious about your own experience, to check in with yourself rather than always checking in with external expectations. So remember, this isn't about fixing yourself. It's about choosing yourself again and again, but this time you're choosing yourself with love. So I want you to take these questions with you this week. Sit with them when you have quiet moments. Journal on them if they helps you process. See what emerges when you create space to listen to your own wisdom. So understand this life. It may not look like what I imagined years ago, but it feels like mine, and that's enough. I'm not chasing perfect. I'm chasing alignment. I'm letting it be soft, letting it be sacred, letting it be slow. When you create a life that actually feels like yours, you don't need to escape from it. You don't need constant distractions or numbing or fantasies about some other reality. You can simply be here now in your own life, fully present, fully engaged, and fully alive. That doesn't mean that every day is easy. I don't want to make it sound like it is. And it doesn't mean I don't still have moments of doubt or fear or overwhelm. I'm human. I definitely have those things as well. But it means that even in those harder moments, I'm still me. I'm still connected to my truth. I'm still home in myself. And that makes all the difference. So if you're building your peace one brick at a time, just know I see you in this space, this podcast, this season of life. It's about learning how to live beyond the version of you that was built for survival. You're not just surviving anymore. You're becoming, and that becoming doesn't need to be perfect or polished or Instagram worthy. It can be messy and non-linear and completely unique to you, because this is your journey home to yourself, and there's no single right way to make that journey. What matters is that you keep taking steps, keep listening to your own heart, keep choosing alignment over approval, even when that's uncomfortable, even when it goes against everything you were taught about what a good woman does. You are worthy of a life that feels like yours. You deserve to be known for who you truly are. You have always had the right to define success on your own terms. In that journey of creating a life that finally feels like yours, it might just be the most important work you'll ever do. If this episode spoke to your spirit, please make sure to share it with someone who needs that reminder. When you like and follow and subscribe, it helps me to know that you enjoy this episode and this podcast. And understand that whoever you're sharing this to needs a reminder that they're allowed to build a life that actually feels like home. And I just invite this for yourself as well. So until next time, this is your reminder. You get to come home to yourself. I'll talk to you next week. See you soon.